Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bow Hunter. I'm your host, Maddie, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands. Searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting. Bow hunters, welcome back. I am Matthias Turner, and I'm joined by Jack Spinks. Jack, welcome, mate.
G'day, mate. How you going? Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm very good. I'm pretty pumped for this one. This will be our first traditional chat that we've had. You have a background in traditional bow hunting. If people follow along on Instagram, I do quite enjoy looking up your page. So it's at JackSpinks_. And the critters you're putting down with a traditional bow are no different to the critters that people are getting down with their compound bows, which is really impressive to see. And I think so many people look in traditional bow hunting, and this is something I was saying to you just before we started the podcast, is that's something I'm going to get to later in life. But, I mean, realistically, like my thought process around it was I started with the traditional bow and I found out that I wasn't as good as a shot as I thought when it came to getting to the animals. The bow wasn't as powerful as I wanted for the animals that I wanted to be going after. And then I was like, heck, I almost took the easy option out by going to the compound bow. Maybe not, I don't know. But when it comes to it, I think realistically a lot of those things can probably be undone based on the bow that you're shooting, the type of archery, the type of equipment that you're using, and then right down to actually how you shoot as well. So, I mean, that's really what I want to dive into when it comes to today's podcast. But what I'd love to hear about, Jack, is just a little bit about yourself, man. How did you get into bow hunting?
I think I've been in a hunting family my whole life. Father, he was a hunter. He used a rifle and dogs chasing pigs, and that never really dived into deer hunting or anything like that. And just grew into it. I started with rifles, just your 22s and that, chasing rabbits and whatever else we could find. Then, just picked up a bow one day for some reason, started making a few out of sticks, and as you do as a kid, then, eventually bought myself a little longbow to start with, a little fiberglass red zone bow. I think nearly everyone's own one. It's those little red fellas with a yellow handle.
Yeah.
And, started from there. Then I actually, believe it or not, bought a couple of compounds and hunted with them for a couple of years.
Trader.
Couldn't hit shit. I couldn't hit shit. I think I might have pinned one rabbit to a burrow one day, and that's about it. And ended up picking up a recurve and never looked back.
Mm-hmm.
So I've probably been active with a bow since I was 10, but probably only ever really got serious when I got a driver's license, so 16, 17, and could take myself around and go hunting every weekend, and just took the recurve out, and from then just never looked back, and it's just been the same ever since.
Yeah, and I mean, even though you guys have a farm, are you traveling quite a lot on weekends to go searching for the animals?
Yeah, my main property, it's probably not too far in comparison to what a lot of people drive, but it's about 40 minutes to the main property where I go hunting. There are some closer, and we do have rabbits and foxes and that sort of stuff on the farm, but when it comes to deer and that, I'll travel up to 10, 11 hours up to fallow country up north or down to Samba country down south. Only about 4.5 hours for Samba. We've got some local reds and fallow and that sort of stuff, but they're so hard to get onto, and access is pretty much impossible. And any deer you do find just get shot by the farmers just because they're simply a pest, Danny.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe you could touch on that from your perspective as a farmer. Like, what are the bad things that happen when you've got deer and you've got pigs and maybe foxes and bits and pieces on your land? Like, what are they doing to your land that is of nuisance to you guys?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a as a farmer, there's no such thing as a good pest. As in, you'll find a lot of people pop up and say they'll rock up on your front door and say, "Listen, I'll do you a favour and get rid of the pigs." And to any farmer, they're just going to look at you and just laugh. So any pigs, deer, you don't want them as a farmer. Simple as that. And if you've got cropping country, everyone's seen what a pig can do to cropping country.
Mm-hmm.
how much a deer can eat, and simply you can't blame a farmer for just grabbing the rifle and going around and just shooting as many as he wants. It's just at the end of the day, they're taking money out of the farmer's pockets, and you very rarely will find a farmer that will actually look after a deer species or the deer numbers or pig numbers simply for hunting's sake. Down here, if they're on the crop, they're as good as dead.
Yeah, fair enough. It's pretty crazy. And I mean, like you said, you're putting in some pretty long hours. Like, I mean, even though 40 minutes is your closest property, you're also putting in the 12-hour drives and bits and pieces. Are you guys, are you feeding off of the animals as well, or are you just a straight hunter?
If I can knock over a nice deer, I'll certainly I'll take as much meat as I can. I'll preferably aim for a nice doe or something like that. And if I'm going to shoot a meat animal, I'll take a doe instead of a young buck or anything like that, because a buck's got potential.
Yeah.
You never know what he's going to be, so there's no point for me shooting one where there's twice as many does. So might as well knock out a doe. You can't pay me to eat goat. I reckon it tastes like shit. And anyone that's ever said to me, listen, my goat curry is the best, it's always still shit. So I steer clear of goats. I'll eat a pig that comes off the cropping country and that, but down here, the main diet for pigs, especially where I hunt, is pretty much baby goats, sheep, carrion, whatever they can find on the road.
Yeah.
So just real nasty meat shit. So it's not even worth eating. I'll just usually knock the back legs out, the back straps, and bring them back for the dogs.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for taking meat, but it just simply depends on what they've been eating.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure they taste good.
Yeah, well, I've got a perfect example. During summer, it's 45, 50 degrees. There's no grass anywhere. All the animals are starving, yet you shoot a big boar and he's as fat as a mud. So you got to ask yourself, what's he been eating? He hasn't been eating lucerne or crop country. He's just simply been eating dead animals and, yeah, all sorts of stuff. So other than that, yeah, I sort of a bit picky when it comes to finding whatever meat. But, yeah, venison's normally what I'll take if I do take an animal.
Yeah. And so what is your bread and butter? What is the stuff that's closest to you? Is it goats and pigs?
Yeah. So I grew up, goats were my bread and butter. I used to go out on a 45-degree day as a kid, and I couldn't fit enough arrows in a quiver, and I'd just shoot goats all day. And that was my bread and butter to start with. Then we didn't have many pigs on our property where we were hunting, and that made it pretty exciting every time you did see one.
Yeah.
So I was shooting up to 11, 12 goats a day, just because there was so many of them.
Yeah.
And they weren't massive billies or anything like that. And that's when I just first started. So I just clocked the numbers up pretty quick doing that. But then I started getting into pig hunting a fair bit more. And I wasn't just shooting any pig I found. I wanted to find those big old nasty rank boars that sort of roam this country, which they're bloody hard to find, but when you do find one, it's certainly worth it.
Yeah, definitely, dude. That's crazy, man. And so, I mean, for you, when you started so young and you were using a recurve from such a young age, is it something that you still practice a lot, or do you find that you don't need to practice as much anymore because it's kind of like just second nature for you now?
In a way, it's second nature, that's for sure. I can have a break and go and pick the bar up and shoot pretty well, but I always found that the more I practiced, the more confident I was, and very rarely ever made a mistake. Unfortunately, sometimes with work and that sort of stuff, you're not able to shoot every day. I'd like to be able to shoot every day, but some days you can't. Like even playing footy on a Sunday or Monday, you're pretty well beaten up for the weekend, so you can't even pull your bow back.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of days out, and but yeah, the more I practice, obviously, the more confident you are in that. But it is certainly it's ingrained in your body now that you can pick it up and usually get pretty close to where you're aiming. And my sort of style is a bit like throwing a baseball, so you don't forget to ride a bike, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're Owen Stronell up north there, he's dabbling with a recurve at the moment, and he's designed a form that's nearly 100% mechanical, so he can not have to practice at all. Then goes back onto this mechanical process he has to follow through with his shot, and that's the way he can do it without having to put hundreds and hundreds of hours into learning to shoot, and it's working bloody well for him.
Mate, that's incredible. That's very interesting. And obviously, it does come down to, at the end of it is just mechanics, right? Like the way that we pull it back, the way that we shoot. It is just about getting the consistency and making sure that you are confident in your shot process at the end of the day. So if he's confident in the mechanics, then that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that was the idea when we first started talking about how he was going to shoot and what he wanted to shoot. And he basically said, I don't have the time. I just want to be able to fall back onto a mathematical, mechanical process, which he's done his whole life with compound. So he said it's just fitting, makes sense. And yeah, he's leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of people already by having that.
Just a good analytical mind, sounds like.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. So, I mean, when it comes to traditional bows, like my bow is just a basic, ridiculous bow that I bought. Probably would have been a $400 pack with everything included. And the name of it is absolutely, I've just lost it. So that doesn't really matter right now. But realistically, you can really dull a bow. Like you can make a bow better based on the extras that you're putting into it, or it can be exactly the same as how it comes off the shelf. So, I mean, when I started shooting mine, it sounded pretty noisy, straight up. My shots, to start with, I was just doing it all in my garage. So you think about like 7 to 8 meters of shots was all I was doing. It wasn't until I started to progress and I took it out into the yard and I went to 12 meters all of a sudden, I was like, oh, there's a difference in what my shot placement should be based on that distance. And then when I started progressing to further shots, so I'd take it out to the farm and go for a 20-meter shot, I realized that I need to aim in different places based on how the traditional bow was. So, I mean, first of all, maybe if we go through the shot process first for you, like what your shot process is when it comes to traditional shooting, and then we might progress into actually like the bits and pieces you can put on your bow to make a difference.
Yeah, well, I shoot instinctively, so I shoot without any reference to the arrow, the bow. So I just pretty much look at what I want to hit and I just draw the bow back and shoot. What I like to... people put out terms like you're a snap shooter, and all this sort of stuff. But my idea of looking at it is I'm an adaptive bow hunter for starters because I'm a hunter, not an archer.
Yeah.
I do like shooting targets, but my main thing is hunting. So if I'm just staring at a target, I'll just draw the bow back, hit anchor, and just release sort of pretty much all in just one swift movement. And that's called snap shooting. Whereas in a hunting situation, if there's a pig walking towards me or a deer going behind the tree, I can rip that bow back, hold it anchor for 15, 20 seconds if I have to, and then still be able to shoot it. So over the years, I've sort of taught myself to be prepared for every situation in the hunting sort of thing, in the hunting field. So if anything like that ever popped up, I was all right. I could shoot a pig on the run, no worries. I could hold my bow for 10 seconds or whatever and shoot, or shoot sideways, upside down, that sort of stuff. So pretty much I just taught myself just to iron out any wrinkles and try and prepare for the worst case scenario. And from doing that, it's sort of helped in heaps of scenarios, really.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, things that people might not understand is like with that back wall, when you draw back and you anchor, like you're fighting the whole bow. You're fighting everything against the bow. For anyone who hasn't shot a recurve before, you don't have that back wall like you do on a compound bow. So you draw back and you have to, like, it's pulling you forward straight away. Like you have to fight pretty hard to hold it back there. Was that just coming down to pure strength and using the bow a fair bit to getting used to holding it back there for 10 to 20 seconds?
Yeah, it was just shooting all the time. If I was shooting at a target, and I'd shoot the snapshots, and then I'd put myself in a situation as if a deer was walking towards me, and I'd just hold the bow back and just pretty much stand behind a tree and wait for 10 seconds or whatever, then take a step out and have a shot. And you just develop muscles over the time. And I know plenty of blokes that can pull back 65, 70 pound, and they're real scrawny fellas. It just seems to be different muscles that you use, and trying to use your back muscles to draw the bow more so than your actual arm or bicep or anything like that makes it much easier.
Yeah, definitely, dude. I actually I started shooting instinctively. That's how I started off, just because that's what seemed natural to me when I was just shooting in the garage every night. And I actually completely fucked up my whole setup based on how I was shooting. So they set it up for me at the shop. They didn't let me shoot it all at the shop. They just like gave me the stuff and said, go on your way. And so I got home. I'm like, cool, I think this is how we shoot it. And I was putting my I was knocking above my little bolt rather than knocking below it. So every time my arrow would actually flip up unless I held it in place. So I started shooting with one finger above and two fingers below. And I was using the leather strap and I was shooting, and every once in a while I'd hit my wrist and I wasn't sure what was going on, but I had an arm guard, so it didn't matter. But realistically, when we break it down, that's all due to the shot process and not actually shooting correctly. I would think. So when it comes to it, do you need to be wearing an arm guard when you're shooting a recurve bow?
Some people do, some people don't. It's just a lot of the time it is your body makeup. For example, females, their elbows are designed to bend inwards.
Yep.
As a male, so you see a lot of blokes and a lot of females, their elbows will bend inwards, and when they draw the bow back, that string's going to hit nearly every time.
Yeah.
So for a female, it's nearly. You really need one. Some people do, some people don't. It's all about how you hold the riser on the bow. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to be different, but I dare say it's probably 50-50 if you need one or if you don't.
Yeah. And how about with hand position? Like if someone's really choking it, they can tend to be what I would call, so it's externally rotated. So that's going to pop that arm facing out more.
Yeah.
Compared to if you relax your grip, you can tend to be more internally rotated, which would turn your elbow. So the elbow pit is facing more towards you or in towards your body rather than being facing up towards the sky. Do you find that makes a big difference? And I don't know if you've ever really helped many people with starting traditional bow hunting, but have you found yourself that makes a big difference?
Yeah, for sure, because you've got that lifeline in your hand, same as a compound. So that line, the base of your palm up between your index finger and your thumb. Now, with a compound, you guys want to have a low wrist, and that's I don't know what that's for, but anyway, apparently Ian Summers was teaching me how to shoot a compound one day, but it was low wrist or something like that. Anyway, but with us, we want to be opposite, so we want to have a high wrist. Now, if you have a high wrist and you just slightly turn your wrist outwards, that'll turn your elbow out.
Yeah.
And what that also does is that stops torquing on your bow. You see people that squeeze it. You can see the torque in the string. It's unbelievable how much you can vary. So pretty much you don't want a death grip. You want your hand out slightly. You want that lifeline basically in the throat of your riser. You want it to be comfortable, and you want to be able to lock those pretty much lock your arm all with bone structure, and just hold it and you should be right.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of stuff I do with coaching and training, people say, for instance, like holding a plate overhead, they would tend to hold it with bent arms, and it's like the worst way you can hold it because it's a lot easier when you stack bone on top of bone. It just structurally, it's a lot more stable and a lot stronger as well. So you're only ever as strong as your base realistically, and if your base of your riser, like if you're not holding it in a good position, that's going to mess you up from the start when it comes to things. I guess the other thing is with your backhand, with your shooting hand, the hand that you're pulling back with the string, what are you aiming for when it comes to that? Like I started, like I said, with one finger above. I had my arrow in the wrong place. I now learned how to actually knock it properly. So I now shoot 3 fingers below, and I aim to pull my middle finger of the 3 back to the corner of my mouth. What do you do in your situation when you're shooting your trad bow?
So pretty much the same. I shoot split finger. I did shoot 300 for a while, and I can shoot either. The only reason I shoot split finger is it just seems to be a bit more comfortable with my instinctive style, as well as it actually makes the bow a bit quieter.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much when you draw back on the same, I've got a bit of an anchor point. It's a bit hard because I've got a bit sort of chubby cheeks, so it makes it a bit hard sometimes, but yeah, I wanted the middle finger. I sort of want in the corner of my mouth, but not so much the loose flesh, I suppose you call it. You sort of want to be using an eye tooth or something that's hard, because if you look at someone's cheek or their lip where everyone anchors, it actually moves around a heap.
Yeah.
So your anchor can actually vary. It could be 5 mil, 10 mil, whatever. So they say you should always try and find like a bone structure or an eye tooth or something like that. You can actually get physical contact on, and then just line I think I even line my thumb up behind a jawbone.
Yeah.
Then try and pull
cool.
through the shot when I can. So.
And so you're often smiling when you're shooting. Then you got your mouth open.
Yeah, always smiling, mate.
pin the finger on.
Yeah. You can feel it through through your skin. So through your lip, you can feel your teeth and that sort of stuff. But just be careful. You don't get your lip caught on something you shouldn't.
Yeah,
pull a tooth out.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Okay, cool. And so when you draw back, they do talk about a thing called walking the string, where you can move your fingers down lower compared to being higher up next to the arrow. What is the benefit of doing that? Is there any benefit of doing that, or should you just literally move your bow up higher and shoot that way?
I think that originated string walking as a target archery. It was just a way that they change their point on. So their point on is at a certain distance. If you look at the tip of your arrow, if you're looking down, your arrow will land at that exact spot.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys were, by string walking, they're able to change the distance of their point on. So they can use the tip of their arrow all the time. And they'll just go down the string to a certain point, still look down the arrow. And it is a very, very accurate sort of system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what Owen Stronall's doing now, because he can just fall back onto that. But in the hunting field, if you're accurate and you're confident, well, that's perfect, really. And it's brilliant for target archery as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, with you, are you out actually ranging to find out how far away something is, or are you literally just like, I think it's this far, I'm going to instinctively shoot based off of everything?
Yeah, I just look at the animal pretty much and shoot. But mind you, majority of my shots are
within 15.
Shit. Yeah, within 15, even close sort of thing. So you know how close it is. You don't even have any drop in your arrow at that distance. So if I ever shoot any further than that, I sort of do. I gauge. I let my body sort of sit back and look and say, right, that actually is a bit further from that tree to this tree, and sort of range it internally. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I sort of get a rough idea, and I pretty much have to tell myself, right, that's about that far, and I just picture the arc of the arrow where it needs to go, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, that's insane. That's cool. Obviously, it's come over a long amount of time, but there is a lot to it. And I started playing with the point on side of things, just when I went to the archery range one day, and found out that my point on when I'm aiming was like 23 meters roughly. So, I mean, that was kind of insightful, meaning that most things within that 23 range is point on, you just go for it, or just below, and it was going to shoot pretty much on target. Whereas anything above that, I had to kind of play with it a fair bit. Now, when I changed bows, obviously, because I was with a mate and we were using his bow a fair bit, it changed it completely based on the fact that I was using his strings, and we actually have the same bow but completely different strings. It just came back to me. I have a Samick Sage Samick. That's the bow that I'm shooting. Yeah, so it's just like an entry-level bow, which is, I actually find it's really cool as an entry-level bow. I really loved it. I actually bought it. It was like what got me into archery to start with. I bought it as a thing that I could take to the farm, because we have it there. We have got to the farm every other Easter as a family. And I was like, this would be something cool that we could do as a family, like a little extra sport thing that we go and do, because we'll go and like smack golf balls around. We'll do some shooting. We'll do clay shooting and bits and pieces. I'm like, this is something fun that we could add to the list of things to be doing. Turned out that the pullback was too hard for anyone, so it was pretty much me and like a few of the boys had a smack, and that was about it. But I mean, something that I've heard you say previously is that you actually do all of your own strings. You make all of your own strings. What dictates a good string when it comes to bow hunting, or when it comes to like a recurve or a traditional bow?
I started making strings because I got sick of buying them, to be honest, and I just wanted to learn how to make them, and through trial and error, just started building a few, and ended up selling them now. But what I try and look for is, I want a material it's quiet for starters, because a lot of people put down as a quiet bow is more efficient than a fast bow.
Yeah.
Material that's quick, it's forgiving, and low creep, so it doesn't stretch too much when you shoot, because sometimes you can use string materials like your D97, your B50s, and even your fast lights. They'll stretch after they're strung, and when you shoot, they'll keep stretching. So what you got to do is shoot, take it off, twist it up, get back to your original brace height, and all that sort of stuff. But if you can find a material that doesn't creep too much, it certainly makes tuning a bit quicker. You don't have to shoot your string in for as long. And if the more twisted your string is, I've found it acts like a spring.
Yep.
So you don't get the full benefit out of your string if it's twisted up too much, because it's not actually stretched out to its full capacity. So you won't have your speed. It'll be quiet.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but you're not getting 100% performance out of your string. So I just like a string that's it's got about an inch. So your colours on your string are about an inch long in the gaps, and anything that's sort of nice and quiet's the main thing, I reckon, without too many silencers on there. A lot of people fill their strings up with silencers.
Yeah.
Giants, big golf balls up to bloody baseballs, all sorts of stuff, and it's quiet, but you're losing too much speed sometimes, and you're not really doing too much. I've always found that a couple of cat whisker silencers is more than enough.
Yeah, and so when it comes to materials that are fast and also not going to move too much in stretch, is that giving away the secret if I ask that question, or is that?
No, I use a material I found. It's called Spectra 652.
Okay.
It's pretty hard to actually get here in Australia sometimes, but it's minimal creep. So you can string it up, and you can shoot 50 shots, and it might creep maybe an eighth of an inch.
Okay. Yeah.
Then twist it back up, and it's brilliant. And it's really fast. And it's virtually silent without silencers. So
what do you do you sell them? You said you sell them. Do you is that through a company name or just through you individually?
Just through me. I've got an Instagram page just under JS Custom Strings.
Okay.
And I just do it through there, or if I don't really advertise too much anymore, just anyone that's used my strings before, sort of just returning customers and word of mouth sort of thing gets around. But it's the fact that I've hunted for long enough and trial and error and been in situations with all sorts of different shit go wrong. So it's nice that I'm pretty confident with the strings I make now.
Yeah.
And I've been using them for years and they're working. So it's
definitely
it's sort of got a pretty good product, I reckon.
That's unreal, man. And so when it comes to making a string for someone, obviously we've got different heights in people, different sizes in people, different draw lengths in people. Does that come into account when you're looking for a new string for your trad bow?
Pretty much all I need information is what colours you want and how long your bow is. So your AMA, so tip to tip, and
when it's not strung,
pretty much,
obviously.
Yeah. So it's and that's all I need, and I can work from there. I've got a jig set up that it takes into account about 3.5 to 4 inches less than your AMA.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pretty much pick how many strands you want, what colour silencers, what colour string material, all sorts of stuff. It's pretty interesting, the sort of stuff you can put in a string or take out, or you really set it up how you want. I use a serving material now that's clear for one of two reasons. First reason is if I ever see a photo, I can look at the string and know it's mine because no one else uses the clear material.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. And I don't use a glove or a tab when shooting a stick bow because I was doing a lot of filming and I got sick of the tab, and the glove was always making it hard to use the camera. It was making noise and hitting the external mic. So this material I use now, it's virtually soft and slippery that you can nearly use a glove. You nearly shoot it without a glove. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's really hard wearing and durable, and I reckon it's twice as strong as your normal serving. So
is that the same for city boy hands, or is it just farm boy hands that can get away without fitting gloves? They don't recommend shooting without a glove. It can, they say, eventually do damage to the nerve endings in the tip of your fingers. Okay.
Which is it can be a problem. Which is you can't repair that. So if I'd suggest, I'd say use a glove or a tab. Don't do what I do, but I just got sick of them, and my hands are pretty rough from firewood and farm life, so they're pretty tough.
Yeah, those tabs look pretty cool. I haven't actually used one, but I've been shooting with a mate that did have one, and it seemed a hell of a lot more efficient than wearing the glove. I don't know if that's actually right or not, based on the fact you'd have to obviously put it in, put it out, maybe, unless you're just wearing it constantly. But like you said, when you're filming, that just adds a whole nother aspect to it all. So it's having to kind of tailor and work your system to that.
Yeah, it's a personal preference. Gloves can be big and bulky. What I personally like is I like to be able to feel the string. Mm-hmm. So a real thin, when I do use a tab, because when it's freezing cold here, shooting with no glove, it makes your fingers feel like they're going to break off at the tips. But so I'll take a tab with me and always have one in the pack. But I just use a real thin piece of leather so I can just feel everything, but it just protects the tips, my fingers pretty much. But yeah, it's personal preference. I used a glove for a long time, but it's just another thing that I have to remember when I go hunting. I used to take a glove, so I just took that out of the equation. I don't have to worry about it now, and I could just pick a bow off anywhere and shoot it. Then have to go and find a tab or a glove. But but what I also do is because my Black Widow recurve that I use, it's pretty heavy poundage. I actually double served my knocking points in, so it's actually like having a glove or a tab there anyway. So it's a bit softer on the fingers, and it's a bit easier for me.
And when it comes to a recurve bow, something they told me when I bought my bow is to make sure that I was unstringing it every time I wasn't going to use it. Based on the string material that you've kind of come across, is that still the same thing? Like you still have to unstring it every time you're not using it?
Well, to be completely honest, I don't unstring my bows ever. Mm-hmm. So they say if you're going to be using your bow constantly or every now and again, don't unstring it, because 99% of damage to your bow comes from people stringing and unstringing.
Yeah.
So there's no proof that the bow will lose any poundage or anything will go wrong if you leave it strung, as long as it's hung up correctly. So when they say correctly, if you're going to hang it on the wall, never lean them on their limb tips up against the cupboard or anything like that, because they will twist and then you're up shit creek.
Yeah.
So you just put 2 pegs in the wall and just hang them evenly either by the string or by the riser.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine. As long as the only time I would ever unstring them is if I won't be using them for over, 6 months.
Yeah.
Or if it's super hot. So if it's, I would never leave a strung one in a car. If I would never leave in the shed if it was super hot, because the heat can actually upset the glue that's holding everything together. And if it's strung, it's got pressure on it and they can delaminate. Then you're really fucked.
How about, say, for instance, traveling? Like, if you were doing a long trip, 12-hour trip in the car, is that enough to warrant unstringing it, or you wouldn't bother?
Yeah, I'll unstring it simply because they're big enough and they get in the road. And if I'm going my local block 40 minutes or whatever, I'll leave it strung.
Yeah.
And that's no worries. But if I'm going up on a big trip, well, I'm not going to need it for at least a day. So I'll pack it away, make sure it's safe, because there'd be nothing worse than getting up there and realise you've pushed your seat backwards and you've broken the limb tip off or something like that.
Yeah, definitely do. Those nightmare stories that you hear about quite regularly, unfortunately. When it does come to, I mean, we talked about silencers based on the strings, but, I mean, do they actually make a big difference, the silencers, if you don't have a good quality string?
Yeah, definitely. It also comes back to what sort of animals you're hunting. If you're hunting the likes of pigs and goats and that sort of stuff, they're not super highly strung. You can get away with a bit of noise, but if you're going to go hunting deer, the likes of your chital and your sambar and everything like that, it's super highly strung, yeah, it'll certainly make a difference. Even foxes and that sort of stuff seem to react pretty quick to an arrow noise, so I'd definitely use them, but I wouldn't go over the top and use them. If you're using too much silencer, you're losing a heap of performance and speed and momentum, kinetic energy, and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of the old blokes they prefer a slow, quiet bow than a fast, loud bow any day.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to testing your bow speed, is there any way to kind of make sense of it apart from chucking it under, I can't even remember what they're called, but that thing that you shoot through, it can check your speed for you?
Yeah, your chronograph is a good way to do it. I had one here for a while, borrowed off a good mate, Grant Rand, and it was actually really good fun because I would make a string, then I'd change it, shoot through it again, and I kept changing setups until I was ending up with a ridiculous speed. I ended up with 225 feet per second out of a 63-pound recurve and 575 grain arrow. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and,
that is.
And that was crazy. And I shot pigs with that setup, and it just blew clean through them, like big, solid archery bores, and just blew clean through. It was unbelievable. But on that, the one thing that I prefer speed is so you don't have that such a big arc in your arrow, which is just another factor you have to take into account when shooting animal. If you got such a large lob into a target or into an animal, so I prefer to have mine shooting as flat as they can, but don't sacrifice a quiet bow for speed. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a bow, like with a recurve bow, like with a compound bow, you change the poundage by changing the limbs a little bit, by adjusting the limbs. With a recurve bow, you obviously don't adjust the limbs. It comes from the string. Am I correct for changing the poundage?
Yeah. So with the new bows, like the ILF bows, so your Samick, not your Samick, sorry, your Hoyts-Satoris, your Buffaloes, that sort of stuff. A lot of them they're adjustable by about 5 pound, just in their limb bolts.
Okay.
And that sort of stuff.
So if you just loosen your bolts off, that.
Yeah, they can loosen off, I think, about as far as 5 pound, but that's neither here nor there, really. The other way is actually by increasing your brace height on a string, by twisting the string up. Yeah, you can gain a pound or two here and there, but you need to go from. I actually tested this the other day. I had my bow set up, and I went from a 8 3/4 inch brace height to about a 9 1/4 inch brace height. This is on a Black Widow, so they usually use a big brace height anyway. And I think I only gained about 2 pound, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Just by changing that. And so pretty much what happens is your string is shorter, so your limbs are actually coming back even further, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And how are you testing that poundage? Are you just chucking it on a scale and pulling it down with the pulley system? Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been funny to watch. I had a set of scales we used for hanging bullocks up, and I had my foot on the riser and the scales, and pulled an arrow back to about my draw length, and measured it all that way in kilos and converted over to pounds, and it was a bit sketchy here and there, but lucky an arrow didn't go off in the process.
And so, I mean, like, is that a thing with the recurve bows that you should never draw it back without an arrow? Or you should never dry fire a recurve bow as well, or a trad bow?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the same. They don't like it. They say, well, the better the bow, the better your chances are of not having one delaminate or break a limb tip off when you do dry fire them, because let's be honest, it does happen by accident. Like, I've even done it before heaps of times, really. You go to shoot an arrow and you don't realise, but half the knock's broken or cracked. It dry fires, and these things happen. I've never wrecked a bow by an accidental dry fire yet. But yeah, you certainly don't want to be letting the string go without an arrow on it, especially those older bows, because they're not reinforced in the limb tips like the new bows. So they tend to blow up pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, something that we kind of, although I did want to get into, I think I've pretty much touched on a lot of the side of the gear side of things. Like, one thing I do want to get into is obviously the stalking side of things, and this is probably where, coming into it as a new hunter, I've probably had the biggest issues. Like, I can practice and target shoot pretty well. I've got up to like 40-meter shots from home, and I'm doing that quite regularly, very confident in my shots. Where I've come undone is generally in the stalk, so finding the animals and probably getting a little bit too excited and running in on them. Not quite, but that's pretty much how it seems. And I mean, I had a big mindset shift when it came to it the last hunt that I went on, and it was by far the closest, not actually the closest I've been to them, but the best stalk I've had, I would say. And I actually got a good shot away, but it just went low, unfortunately, on the deer. But I mean, it kind of, I had to change my whole mindset around it. It's not just find the animal and go to the animal. It's kind of set up away from the animal, or not necessarily set up, but figure out which way the animal is going and try to work a pattern around that instead and set yourself up into a good position. Is that something that you were trying to do, or are you like, what is your hunting method when it comes to getting in close to the animals, as close as you do?
Well, my theory is, get as close enough that you can't miss, pretty much.
Yeah.
But pretty much, for me, I find an animal that I like and I want to shoot, and pretty much if it's on, it's on. If it's not, you sort of got to hold back sometimes. Some people, when I'm hunting, they'll look at me and like, what are you doing? Like, I'll literally just either run straight at an animal or just walk straight towards it, and they'll be like, you're moving too quick. But my theory is, mate, that very, very rarely is that animal going to walk over to you and just stand there at 10 metres and give you a broadside shot. You sort of have to make your own luck, and in some situations it pays off, other situations it don't.
Yeah.
Especially in the hills, I found hunting, if you're sitting off a buck and you're 50 yards away or whatever, and you're waiting for him to move behind a tree before you take off, and you could be there for 20, 30 minutes, but then that wind swirls and it's game over.
Got you done, yeah.
So a lot of times I like to think, I take out a lot of the, like the wind swirling or something else spooking you or something else coming along a game pad at the same time, by I pretty much try and get in there as quick as I can, undetected. I'm not super tall. I'm only 5'9" or something like that, so I'm a bit short. So I can get in there not too bad, but body language is probably one of the main things on an animal. Like with a pig, if their tail's going berserk, he's feeding, and just being aware of the situation, really. If there's any other deer, if there's birds are a pain in the ass, they'll give you away a bit of the time.
Yeah.
But when I see an opportunity, like I'll take it. If his head goes behind a tree, I'll steal 10, 15 steps and try and get as quick as I can. There are situations where if something's bedded down and it's not right, well, unfortunately you have to hold back and either back out and come at a different angle or just let it go. But a lot of the times I've found that luck certainly doesn't happen a lot when hunting for me. You sort of got to make your own luck and make the hunt happen, sort of thing. You can sit back and hope to Christ he's going to walk on the game pad and stand 10 metres broadside for you, so you could plug him, or you can say, righto, not getting anywhere here, either back out, come back tomorrow, or take a risk. A lot of times if risk pays off, it's certainly one hell of a story.
Yeah, I mean, that gives me a lot of confidence in actually the way that I was hunting prior to this last hunt that I've been on, based on the fact that the wind swells like a motherfucker at the property I'm on. It literally, there's valleys and walls everywhere, and I mean, it can be that I would walk 20 to 30 meters and the wind's going back in the completely opposite direction. So you have to be quite aggressive at times with it. And that was kind of my theory for a long time. And I got closer by doing that. But this was the first time that I've been within, like I probably spent a good 30, 40 minutes just on their tail and them not knowing I was there at all the whole time. But I mean, different situation, right?
Yeah, that's it too. Like you can sit there and you can wait, but what can happen in those 30, 40 minutes could be, like you said, wind change or something like that. One thing I always go for is the wind. Make sure the wind's in your favour, and if it's a good strong wind and it's not going to change, you could sit there for 2, 3 minutes and you'll know if the wind's going to swirl in some spots or not, or it's going to be consistent. And if they're feeding, well, they can't hear you, and the wind, it's giving you your scent. So I just scoot in as quick as I can, and because animals that are feeding all the time, they're always moving, so it's very hard. You can't really just walk in then wait 20 minutes, because by the time you've done that, he's could be another 50 metres up in front of you, sort of thing. So it's all comes down to just pretty much looking at the situation, looking at the animal, sitting back to start with and thinking, right, what's he going to do? For example, if he's a big rank boar and he's sort of cruising around feeding by himself and there's a mob of digs over here, well, fair chance he might come back to that sow at some stage. So instead of going directly at him, maybe you go in between them and make sure the wind's right, and by chance he's certainly going to probably feed this way in one direction or another. So if you can get an ambush, that seems to be the best. Or best for me anyway down here, because we get a lot of saltbush country and you can't really see too far in front of you. and a lot of the time we just got to work off noise if you can hear a pig coming or whatever. But pretty much, yeah, you just got to sometimes just risk it, and if it doesn't pay off, well, that's bow hunting for you, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, dude. How much are you paying attention to your own footwork in regards to noise and sound, and what are you looking for when you're creeping in on an animal? I know you said just before that when they're eating or when they're feeding, they're not necessarily going to be able to hear you. But I mean, do you take that into factor a lot?
Yeah, certainly. Like, you got to be quiet because you see on the movies, on the cartoons, whatever, and a hunter steps on a stick and the deer pops his head up. Well, it does work like that sometimes. I've had that situation happen sometimes, and you're like, you got to be shitting me. Like, how did you even hear that?
Yeah.
But yeah, down here with the pigs and the goats and that sort of stuff, goats will generally feed into the wind. And once they're moving, yeah, you're pretty right. They'll just keep their heads down and feeding. It's when they want to bed up, which makes it hard because they'll be looking nearly 360 degrees. But yeah, I can't take my shoes off down here. And we got this terrible prickle or burr. And it's, yeah, if you take your shoes off, you don't go any further than 2 steps and you got to throw your socks away. Like, it's terrible shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, find a pad or whatever you can. And that's the other thing too. Like, if I see an opening to gain 10, 15 steps or whatever, and it's quiet, yeah, like, just take it. A lot of the times, yeah, you will have to risk it with the wind, but if it's howling a gale,
you get so many steps in, hey, when it's howling.
Oh, it's unreal too. Like, you'll be hunting with another bloke, and he'll be 3 or 4 meters behind you, and you won't be able to hear him.
Yeah.
And so you think to yourself, well, that pig or deer's 50 meters away. There's no way in hell he's ever going to hear me doing this. So, but yeah, the other thing I really do take into account, and a lot of people don't really understand, is when you're walking through thick bushes and that, the noise of your clothing on the bushes.
Yeah.
That's why I tend to use woolen shirts, so like just a fleecy top.
Yeah.
Because if you're walking through the scrub, when you're wearing just say like a down jacket or a real thin poly top or whatever, when it rubs against the bush, it makes a certain noise that an animal can pick that up and go, well, that's not right, because if a pig walks past the bush, you don't hear anything, do you? Like, it's,
no, exactly.
Or with a goat or a deer or even a cow. But if you walk past and it sounds like you're scratching a raincoat, and they'll hear that and they'll pick that up too. So that's why I tend to use a fleece top. Work pants are like those FXD work pants seem to be really good when they soften up. They don't make too much noise, and yeah, it's just another thing to be aware of.
The other thing with those shirts and jackets is just when you're walking, sometimes like if you're brushing your arms or you're walking fast or anything, that's like swishing the whole time. That is something I did notice, is that a lot of time you're just getting out in shorts, or you're getting out in just like a one solid color. Like, there's so many photos of you with successful hunts where you've got just a camo top on, and you've got your blue shorts on. I mean, when it comes down to something like that, like most of us are getting out in full camo, head to toe, and we're not getting as close to the animals as you are. What do you kind of put that down to? Like, is that just a bit of stealth, or is that a bit of aggression, or like, yeah, what?
That's a funny one. When we go hunting deer camp, we used to have full-on face paint and look like soldiers and all that sort of shit, and covered from head to toe. But if you move, they still see you. So it doesn't matter how good your camo is or how much camo you got on. If you still move, an animal's going to see you, sort of thing. Like back in the days before they even had camo, they probably shot more animals than we did. But I even on the weekend, I just took a normal long sleeve green shirt and my work pants, and I hate being seen in camo. Down here, it's sort of frowned upon. If you walked into a servo wearing camo, they'd think you're going to rob the joint. They'd probably dong you with a stick. Whereas other places you can get away with it, but down here, like, I don't even like the property owner seeing me in camo, because they don't, like, they're thinking, what are you doing? Like, that's you're a creep walking around in the bush by yourself chasing animals. But yeah, it just comes down to, I think, just don't move. Yeah. Just move when they're not looking. In summer, it's a lot of times where I'm hunting in bushes and that. Well, nothing's going to see your legs anyway, so you might as well wear something that's comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, you can get away with a lot, really. Like grandfathers and all that sort of stuff, they used to wear just your checker shirts or didn't even have camo back in the 60s and that sort of stuff, and they still shot plenty of pigs and all that sort of stuff. I think if you rely too much on your camo, sometimes you'll be a bit upset with the outcome, I reckon.
Yeah, makes you a bit of a lazy hunter.
Yeah, in a way, like I certainly do like camo when I'm hunting deer and that sort of stuff. I won't wear camo pants anymore because I could never find a pair that I really, really liked or was comfy because I run really hot when I'm hunting. And I get back to the camp or whatever and I just take my shirt off and I'm just in my civilian clothes, I dare say. And, it's just it comes down to just don't move. Like camo is really good. Like you see a lot of the camo brands in the company. I'm not knocking any of them because they all work. It's how you want to use your camo to your advantage. But a lot of the times you'll see a lot of the photos of camo and that sort of stuff up against a tree or in front of a rock or that sort of stuff. That's all good and well. But it's the camo when you leave that area and you're in the open, that's when it needs to work. You see a lot of blokes in high-vis mine clothes shooting pigs and deer, and people are like, you're crazy, you're wearing a fluorescent top. And they say, well, some animals can't see colour. I didn't move. An animal won't be scared of something if they can't recognise what it is or if it doesn't see movement, sort of thing. So it's I think it's good fun because a few people get the shits that you can sneak up in footy shorts and a t-shirt and shoot something from a few metres away when they're all dressed up in the hoodie and the face veil and camo paint and blacked out eyes and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so for you, when it comes to stalking on an animal, you're getting close and it starts to realize you're there. Its movements change a bit. Its ears start to prick up. What do you do in that factor? Do you just stay completely still and sit and wait for a few minutes, or you kind of keep still trying to put a bit of pressure on it?
Yeah, it sort of comes down, I think, to the animals, their body behaviour sort of thing. Like with a pig, a lot of the times if they know something's not right and you're close, they'll just go stiff, throw their head up, try and smell you, and their ears will stand straight up, and you know the majority of the time he's going to blow out of there regardless. He's going to, if he doesn't smell you, he knows something's not right, and if he's old and smart, he'll bugger off. The good thing sometimes about having a recurve and being able to shoot fast is when they do get sort of spooked or aware, you can actually drive an arrow in there really quick. Especially if you're only 3 or 4 metres away, you can actually get an arrow in before he even realises what's going on.
Yeah.
With goats, oh mate, it's a fucking nightmare with the goat because you get picked up by Nanny and she's going to be keeping eyes on you for seems like hours and hours. You might as well give up sometimes because I've been caught out by a goat in the sun in a place I shouldn't be, and they just stare at you and they don't leave you alone, and you end up getting cramped and you're just like, mate, it's off. But yeah, that happens to me a lot. You just get picked up and they don't actually recognise what you are, but they just see the fact that something's moved. And yeah, it's not right.
Yeah.
When we were hunting buffalo in Northern Territory, property owner from down here, family friend, and he sends me photos all the time of buffalo, and he just wears your normal blue jeans and just normal work shirt, just the beige or the white work shirts and a Cobra hat.
Yeah.
And he's got photos 15, 20 metres away from these buffalo, and we rocked that one time and all sorts of camo and shit and headed off, and we come back. He said, "Did you get one?" I said, "No." He said, "Yeah, because they're not used to trees moving." That's the first thing he said. He said, "You won't shoot one with that camo shit on." And we laughed at him. He said, "Bullshit, mate. This is what camo's for." Anyway, the next few days we hunted pretty hard, and every time we moved and they picked up a bit of movement, they sort of just wandered off. Whereas I think on the last day, he said, "You will not kill one in camo." We said, "Right, we'll try it." We just chucked our shorts on, grabbed a beer, headed out with a bow, and we both ended up shooting 2 buffalo in the not long between each other sort of thing. So I think it comes down to if the animal's seen people a lot, it does pay sometimes not to have so much camo on.
Mm-hmm.
Even yourself, you can if a goat spots you, you can sometimes just walk directly towards it. Any of this sideways movement they don't like, but you can get away with a fair bit of movement if you just walk dead straight.
Yeah.
And even if you've got a compound, you're a pretty good shot. And at 35, 40 metres, it's pretty easy to walk up to something and it'll stare at you the whole time. And if you're confident in the shot and your gear, you can generally get that shot away and seal the deal. But, for me, I just like to get as close as I can. And if shit hits the fan, well, that's part of it. You might get chased by a pig and you might get tipped over a couple of times or chased by a buffalo or whatever, but I think that's all part of the excitement.
Mate, that was actually going to be my next question, is obviously because you're getting so close in on the animals, I'm sure there's going to be some close experiences or near experiences where they've come after you because they realise that something's not right and that you're right there, so you're in their sphere where you're now a threat. What sort of instances have you had in that regard?
I've actually been pretty lucky. Because I grew up with pigs. I've got pigs myself. They don't worry me. So I've never been ripped by a pig. I've been chased a few times. Used to do a lot of dogging for the pigs, and we used to get chased all the time because you're in the fight with the dog sort of thing. So the pig just takes out whatever it can at the time.
Yeah.
The only proper real good charge, I had plenty of dummy charges and that. But I was walking over a tree one day because I was going to climb it to see if I could see anything in the distance, and the wind changed, and for some reason this big black and white boar stood up, and he actually chased me. He was downwind, and he decided to chase. I don't know why. He was a big tank too, and I had to sidestep him pretty quick. But when I shot my buffalo bull a couple of years ago, he and another bull saw me coming down this hill, and they actually charged at me. And I was standing behind a tree, only nowhere near big enough to be hiding behind a tree.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if I run, he's going to plough me. If I stand, he's probably going to plough me. So I might as well try and get a shot away. And he full bore. He had his head down, and he was pig rooting and kicking, and he was coming in for a charge. And I thought to myself, well, I better go out swinging. So I stepped out from one tree, and at about 4 metres, he sort of turned and went to turn away. So it was a bit of a dummy charge. And when he turned, he sort of opened up his shoulder and stuck the arrow in behind him there, and he dropped within sort of 50 metres or whatever. But I was pretty calm the whole time. Like, it was a mad adrenaline rush, but when I sit back and think about it, I said, fuck, that was close. Like, they could have gone south pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was, other than that, few pigs chasing that sort of stuff. They normally stop halfway through, or a lot of the times when you're so close to the likes of a big boar or something like that, you're that close that when he sees you, he shits himself like straight away. Then he
up and run.
Off. Whereas, he's it's more the fright that he realises what you are that makes him run. But if I wounded him, a lot of times if I wound a pig, especially the big old cranky fellas that might come, or a big old sow. Actually, speaking of big old sows, I was whistling along a creek with a mate. We just finished chasing pigs all morning, didn't shoot anything. We were whistling along this creek, and I just had normal clothes on. I had a checkered plate shirt on, I think. Flanny, just normal flanny, and a beanie, and I was whistling away. And all of a sudden, this big old bitch of a sow come flying in behind me and near tipped me over. But what had happened was she heard me whistling, and I was real raspy, so it sounded like a piglet was squealing.
Yeah, okay.
And she's from 100 metres away, and she's coming as cranky as shit. Anyway, she tried to tip me over and that, but I didn't know what had. I ended up shooting her. I'd spun around and shot her when she come back for a second go, but I had no idea what was going on, and we popped our heads up and looked out, and there's a mob of pigs about 100 metres away, a heap of little suckers, so she was just coming over to protect one.
Dude, that's crazy.
That was pretty close.
I actually shot a piglet once, and this sow, she was so angry because he let out a good scream, and she was just like, it was pretty much, I was in a creek bed, he was just on this little mound, and then she was over the other side of this mound, and she just lost her shit. Like, she just sounded so angry, and I shat myself. I'm like, what do I do? So I started running back for the other bank. I'm trying to get out of there. I'm like, I'm not sticking around for this. Like, if she comes out, I've got a better shot from back there anyway. That was kind of the reasoning I put around it. When you hit the buffalo with the arrow, did that make him spin at all, or did he just take off then?
No, he just took off straight away. So I think I called his bluff by accident. He was coming, and I think because I stepped out and showed myself a bit, and he just turned at the last second, and the arrow hit him sweet, and he just ran 50 metres or whatever and turned around and looked at me, then just started pissing blood out of his nose and just toppled over.
Yeah, wow.
It was pretty bloody exciting. Like the other bull that was with him, he ran off with him as well, and he just stood there next to him, just both staring me down, and old mate fell over, then he pissed off. But I tell you what, I was sitting there and they're coming down this hill flat out, and I thought, fuck, they're getting bigger. They're getting bigger, and I might be in trouble there, thinking, my mate was only, Grant Van was with me, he was only 50, 60 metres away watching or whatever, and I thought to myself, well, at least he can take my body back when I get trampled.
Oh, dude, that's ridiculous. When it comes to it, are you more of a trophy hunter, or are you just happy to be hunting?
Oh, I'm happy to hunt just anything really, mate. I get excited about hunting rabbits if I have to.
Yeah.
Foxes, but yeah, I'll predominantly chase a trophy. Not that there's anything wrong with shooting whatever you want. Like if you want to shoot something, shoot. Like it's no one else's business. But
yeah.
I get more of a kick out of finding a big old buck than chasing him for 7 to 10 days, and that's it. And if I don't get him, well, I give it a fair hot crack and I'll go home. I'm not into shooting anything I can, like pretty much everything I see. I'll let pigs walk unless the farmer's really saying, please clean a few up. I'll drop whatever I can find. But yeah, I've got no interest in shooting the likes of nanny goats or anything like that unless it's for meat for someone or sows or anything like that. I very rarely will shoot a sow now. But yeah, I'll pretty much go for the biggest and the baddest and the oldest as I can find. If I can't, well, I'm happy to go without.
Yeah, that's unreal, man. And I mean, before we start to wrap things up, one question I'd love to ask is just what your favorite hunt is. Like what, and maybe because we've already talked about the buffalo hunt, maybe if we cut that one out. So if there's another one on top, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know, mate. I shot my first buck in 2012, and I struggled for about 4 years just with access and places. I never got one, but then I ended up getting two fighting on the same day. That was a pretty cool hunt. I was pretty stoked just to get another good fellow, and they were cracking fellows too. But I reckon it was last winter. I was out hunting at a local block, and I might hunt out there. I might do 25, 30 hunts a year and might only shoot 2 or 3 good boars off there.
Yeah. Not
that I'm not seeing pigs, it's just I'm just after those big cranky boars I know live out there. And I went out with a mate, and it was late in the day, and we just checked this patch that every now and again holds pigs, and I thought to myself, well, we're here, we might as well check it. We're usually too late, like it's 10:30 or whatever, like the pigs be bedded up by now. Anyway, walked up and back, and the wind was good, and I just super quiet and saw a couple of small pigs, and I was like, oh, right, That was odd time of the day, then kept going, then I heard this squeal. I thought, oh, right, I'll go and see what it is. Got there, and there was about 20 pigs in this mob in this spot that I've never seen pigs before, and I thought, this is unreal. Like, even to see that many pigs in one, like in a mob itself out there was unreal. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking over the mob, can't see anything. Then, holy fuck, this boy stands up out of this bush. And I went, holy shit. I straight away went to water. Just started to shake. He was nowhere near me. He was probably 50 metres away or 60 metres away. And I was just watching this thing walk around, and I went, you are the biggest and ugliest pig I've ever seen in my life. And, I was losing my shit. Anyway, I had a brand new bow, so it was a long bow. I had these cheap-as Chinese arrow shafts, and I looked at my gear and said, fuck, I'm going to need a bigger bow for this boar. Like, I just thought to myself, this thing's going to take some killing. Anyway, I sat there up behind this tiny bush because I sort of wasn't expecting to see that many pigs, and there's pigs feeding around me, and this young boar starts walking to this bush. And I go, oh, no. I'm gonna have to shoot this pig just so it doesn't spook the mob. Anyway, I noticed the big boy at the back. He disappears. I'm going, fuck. Like, you know, when you get this heart, I've found him now. He's gone. This pig is going to blow out. We're going to lose the whole mob and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm thinking, it's a shame because he's such a good pig. Anyway, the more I watched him, the young boar come towards me, and he was only 3-4 meters in front of me. And he was probably a good 50 kilos, but this other big guy was near twice the size. Anyway, he popped back around and gave a sour nudge. And the more I looked at him, I'm like, holy shit. Had ripped ears, big bushy tail, a head like a horse on him.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh, Christ. Anyway, I'm behind this tiny bush. And I see this boar lift his head up and look straight at me. And I'm thinking, he can't see me. He must be looking at this younger boar in front of me. Anyway, he starts marching over to this young boar. And now my ticker, mate, I'll tell you what, it was going through the roof. Thought I was going to have a heart attack down the bush. Anyway, so he comes over this boar and he's getting close. And I've knocked an arrow and I'm shaking like a leaf. I've got this little longbow with me and he gives this young boar a nudge. Anyway, that young boar squeals and runs off. But then the pig sort of turns back towards me again. And I don't know, he probably heard me shaking or probably heard my heart pounding. And he thought, he reckoned he'd come over for a look. Anyway, so I'm half crouched down and this tank of the thing's coming towards me. And I'm thinking, if shit goes south, he's got me. Like, there's no question about I won't be able to run anywhere. There's no trees. I've got to risk this one. Anyway, he's coming closer and all I could do was sort of this tiny bush. As he was walking, I sort of just backed out a little bit and there was like a clearing the size of a Coke can in this bush. I thought to myself, I'm going to shoot you through this. Anyway, so I sort of slowly came to full draw on this bow, anchored, and he's just sort of come closer and closer and closer. And about 2 meters on the other side of this bush, he sort of just eyeballing me nearly. Anyway, so I shoot this arrow down through the top of his chest and he takes off. Anyway, I knew straight away that the shot was good and it was a good spot, but I didn't know what the shot placement, the penetration was like.
Yeah.
Anyway, he does a big loop. Arrow's dangling or angling down into his chest, quartering on behind his shoulder. And I had this tiny bit of hope thinking, I've got him. And I fist pump in the sky and pigs going everywhere. And I didn't even know if he was dead by that time. And I started following the blood trail and I disappears. So I walked probably 10 yards and no blood.
Yeah.
That's it. No blood. I can't lose him. And out there, it's all like salt pan and that, so blood dries up really quick and it's really hard to see.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm following this track and lose the blood. So I backed out again, went back and I could see where he'd taken off. So all his footprints were like he kicked up dirt behind him. So you could tell that he was running. Anyway, so I'm following, and my heart's starting to sink, mate, because I'm thinking arrow's angling down his chest. He's not bleeding out. His chest is probably filling full of blood. He could be half a K away by now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm following, and get to the road, and nothing. Then I look up and I could see my arrow. And I thought, oh, beautiful. I'll go have a look there, and it had probably a third penetration.
Yeah.
Out of like a 29, 30-inch arrow, and I'm thinking, oh, fuck, is that enough? Anyway, I looked on the ground, a bit more blood, and I thought, oh, shit, he might be wounded, tucked up in one of these bushes. I better be careful here. So I rang my mate that was with me and said, can you go back, get the ute, and I'll meet you down here. I said, I've shot a cracking boy and I want to find him. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sitting down and it's started to sink in that I reckon I might have lost this thing, and I sort of turned my head and I just see his back leg hanging out from a bush, only probably 3 meters. Anyway, I didn't even want to go look at it because I was that stoked and that excited. I couldn't even contain myself to walk around and have a look at this pig. Anyway, eventually walked around and had a look at it, and I was like, holy shit. The thing would have been easily 140 kilos. Wow. He's a monster. He's on the Instagram page there. He had big, thick hooks that a couple were snapped off, and they were only short, but he's had scars all down his eyes, all down his back.
Just a true warrior.
His pads were his shit, and it was, to date, I reckon it's the best animal I've ever shot, especially out there and especially with the bow I was using too. Like it was a 63-pound bow and a 520 grain arrow, and I shot him from 2 meters and only went in 10 inches. And it was a perfectly tuned arrow too.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was so solid. I couldn't believe it. I set him up, and the mate rocked up, and I said, "Come look at this," and he said, "Holy shit!" Like it was for a pig like that out there. Yeah, that was one of the highlights of my bow hunting career, I reckon.
Dude, that's unreal.
He's excited talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. You couldn't smell him when you were sitting down?
No. He because there's a lot of saltbush out there. The saltbush really has a real strong smell.
Okay.
So it sort of taints the air and that sort of stuff. But yeah, once it sort of got up on him, he didn't stink too bad actually. Really, didn't smell like a musky boar that you normally smell.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he was pretty clean. Like he wasn't covered in mud. Had a bit of crust on his pad and that sort of stuff. But other than that, no, he was pretty good. But yeah, he was freaking tank. I got the bloke I go hunting with. He's a short little fella. Anyway, we laid him next to him, and the pig was bigger than him. I couldn't. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's hilarious. I'm going to troll your page afterwards to find that fella. That's incredible. Well, man, that's been incredible. I think that's very insightful for a lot of people who are maybe looking into traditional hunting. I think that everyone should have both bows, really, based on, from me as a beginner, I think they're both really cool to experience both sides of it. And I've shot rabbits with my bow, with my recurve, and I think it's just an awesome way. It's a very almost primitive way for us to live and hunt, and I think that's really cool. And I think you can only get better through using tools like a traditional bow. I mean, that's proven through the conversations we've just had and the animals that you're constantly posting up, dude. So where can people follow along if they want to jump on and follow you on Instagram and follow your, in particular, your strings as well?
The string account's just JS Custom Strings on Instagram. I think that's the only page I have for them, or just get hold of me on, I think it's Jack Spinks _ on Instagram or whatever. And if you want a string, just more than happy to work with you and organise what sort of string and material and that you want, just to try and get the best out of your bow. But yeah, all the hunting stuff will be on there, and it's mainly hunting sort of material. So I'm not really too much into Facebook much anymore. So anything that I sort of do hunting related is mostly on Instagram.
Dude, that's unreal. And also, you do some of the editing for the Bow Hunting Down Under magazine. So if they want to follow along, they can see some of your stories in there too. But dude, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really cool conversation.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
Mate, more than welcome. That's it, guys. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Becoming a Bow Hunter. You guys can follow along with the journey at becomingabowhunter.podcast on Instagram and Facebook. You can also head across to the YouTube channel, which is Becoming a Bow Hunter. So guys, follow along. We've got a whole heap of different recipe videos up there, as well as different snippets from along the way, along the journey so far. If you guys do enjoy the show, please pass it around. If you got something out of this show, then I'm sure another bow hunter, another friend of yours would get a hell of a lot out of it as well. So please share the love, share the podcast, and thank you so much for tuning in.